Number 10. Gut-stuffed pipes. Serial killer Joachim Kroll was finally captured after a police hunt for a missing 4-year-old girl. The police search revealed that the waste pipe in Kroll's apartment building was mysteriously blocked. Investigating the blockage, the officers found the missing girl's intestines. When they entered Kroll's apartment, they discovered her chopped-up body. The girl's hands were boiling in a pot on the stove. During questioning, Kroll said he ate people to save on grocery bills. He was found guilty of killing 8 people and sentenced to life in 1976. Number 9. Angel of Death. In 1991, bloodthirsty nurse Beverly Allett went on a murder spree in the hospital children's ward she worked on. Allett administered lethal doses of insulin to 2 children, with a third killed when she injected oxygen into his bloodstream. Others were injected with potassium. The 9 that miraculously survived her murder attempts were subjected to smothering and having their oxygen supply cut off. In 1993, she was handed 13 life sentences without possibility of parole. Number 8. Trailer Park Cannibal. In 1995, Joe Metheny lured 3 prostitutes to his trailer park home before stabbing and strangling them to death. Once they were dead, he stripped their flesh and stored it in Tupperware. Metheny then mashed the human flesh with beef and pork, selling it to hungry customers at a sandwich stall. He was finally caught when one potential victim escaped by scaling a 10-foot-high wall and jumping over a barbed wire fence. At the trial, he admitted to a further 5 murders. He was sentenced to life in 2000. Number 7. Just like Mama used to bake. In 1939, Leonardo Cianciulli's son was called to fight in World War II. A distraught Cianciulli believed the only way to protect him was through human sacrifice. She lured 3 women to her house, claiming to have a new job or husband waiting for them. But when they arrived, she would give them drugged wine before axing them to death and turning the remains into tea cakes and soap. In a kindly gesture, she gave these items to neighbors as gifts. She was eventually jailed for 30 years in 1946. Number 6. Crossbow. Stephen Griffiths was completing a PhD in the history of homicide when he started putting his education into practice. The UK psychopath kidnapped and butchered 3 prostitutes with a crossbow before dining on their remains. After each killing, the macabre cannibal would raise a beer can to his building's CCTV camera in celebration. This surveillance footage finally caught him though, when a security check revealed him chasing a terrified woman through a corridor and shooting her in the head with a crossbow. He was sentenced to life in 2010. Number 5. Sadomasochist pedophile. Albert Fish was an American sadomasochist. Before his killing spree, Fish had aroused suspicion by encouraging children to violently spank him and devouring raw meat beneath the full moon. Aged 40, he severed his lover's penis, which sparked more extreme bloodthirsty desires. He soon began kidnapping, torturing, and eating young children. In one case, he wrote his victim's parents an anonymous letter ending, "How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven." Police traced the letter and detained him. Fish was executed by electric chair in 1936. Number 4. Slave Butcher. When firefighters arrived at Madame Lalarie's New Orleans apartment in 1834, they found more than just flames. Chained to the stove was an elderly slave who had started the fire, hoping to burn to death and avoid further torture. Firemen beat down the attic door and found the floor littered with bodies. Slaves with mouths sewn shut, full of animal dung, and others hanging from their ears with open wounds teeming with maggots. Reportedly, some slaves had had their bones smashed and reset in a crab position. Disturbingly, Lalarie disappeared to Paris before facing the law. Number 3. Human Skin Onesie. Ed Gain was a grave robber and a murderer with disturbing haberdashery skills. When police raided his home, They found items including a lampshade made from a human face, a nipple-studded belt, and 9 vulva in a shoebox. Gain's desire to create a onesie from human flesh led him to skin at least 15 female bodies and make leather with the bounty. In 1957, police linked Gain with a missing woman. When they raided his home, they found her headless body hanging from a meat hook above a table propped up by shin bones. Gain was committed to a mental health institution and died incarcerated in 1984. Number 2. Tongue-tied. Andrei Chikatilo was a Soviet serial killer. Aroused by violence, he sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated at least 56 women and children between 1978 and 1990, although there were several male victims too. Typically, Chikatilo would lure victims from train stations before enticing them to deserted woodlands to launch his attack. After his 1985 confession, Chikatilo admitted that he frequently bit off victims' tongues, lips, and genitalia before they died. He had a state execution in 1994. And finally, number 1, the beggar hunter. In 2000, a Pakistani judge found Javed Iqbal guilty of 100 deaths. They sentenced him to be strangled in front of victims' families, cut into 100 pieces, and dissolved in acid. This gruesome punishment adopted the same method that Iqbal had used on beggars and street children during a 6-month execution campaign. Some victims were groomed through magazine pen pal subscriptions. Iqbal would mail them perfume and coins before arranging to meet. Iqbal and an accomplice committed suicide in custody before the execution. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch up my next video.